There's a name that echoes in political backrooms, but you won't hear it shouted from podiums. He doesn't host press conferences with flashy suits or smile for the election posters. No slogans, no campaigns, just silence and fear. Because when General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi shows up, people know something serious is about to go down. This isn't just a cop. This is a man who made mayors sweat, exposed million-rand scams, and stared political power in the face without blinking. While most play it safe, he plays it straight. And in a country where corruption really wins, that's dangerous. So who really is this man politicians want their cross? Why are there whispers of getting him transferred and cutting his budget? Well, buckle up, because once you understand who Mkhwanazi really is, you will see why the people in power are more afraid of him than the criminals he arrests.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says that all those who are proven to have done wrong in the concerns raised by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi will be dealt with thoroughly in terms of the country's laws. The president was speaking to the media at the end of the BRICS summit, which ended in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. General Mkhwanazi alleged that the police service has been infiltrated by criminal syndicates. He also accused Police Minister Senzo Mchunu of having constant communication with criminal syndicates and of disbanding the political killing task team for no reason. President Ramaphosa says that the allegations are serious as they have implications for national security.
South Africa isn't just battling crime, it's been strangled by it. Every year, headlines scream about corruption, arms deals, tender fraud, cash in transit heists, and somewhere between all of that, ordinary people get caught in the crossfire. There's a reason why many South Africans don't call the police when something goes wrong. They don't trust the system anymore. And can you blame them? When some of the most dangerous criminals wear suits, sit in parliament, and smile for the cameras, it's hard to believe justice still exists. The numbers back it up. According to Stats SA's 2024 crime report, over 70% of South Africans feel unsafe walking alone in their neighborhoods at night. Public confidence in the SAPS below 30%. And while crime rises, conviction rates fall. Politicians deliver speeches, task teams are formed, promises are made, but year after year, nothing really changes. That's the environment General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi walked into. A world where doing your job properly doesn't get you promoted, it gets you removed. He wasn't voted in, he didn't make deals to get his position. He wasn't chosen to protect power, he was appointed to protect people. And in a system that often rewards silence, this man decided to speak up with actions. He doesn't like small talk, doesn't show up for photo ops, and if you ever find yourself sitting across from him, you'll quickly realize that General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi isn't here to impress anyone, he's here to get the job done. Born and raised in KwaZulu-Natal, Mkhwanazi grew up during the tail end of apartheid, a time when policing meant something very different than public safety. He saw firsthand how authority could be abused, and maybe that's where the seed was planted. The idea that real power lies in discipline, not domination. He joined the police service young, not to chase a title, but to understand how systems work. By 21, he was already in tactical response. By 30, he was rising through the national ranks. Colleagues describe him as methodical, quiet in meetings, ruthless in follow-through. He's not the type to celebrate an arrest. He's the one reading the entire docket twice. Unlike most high-ranking officials, Mkhwanazi isn't known for delegation. He prefers to be on the ground, visiting crime scenes, talking to families, asking the question others ignore. In 2011, he was appointed acting National Police Commissioner, the youngest to ever hold that position. He was only 39 years old, and just like that, he was sitting at the top of a structure he knew was broken, and surrounded by people who preferred to keep it that way. But Mkhwanazi never played the political game, and that made him a problem. When the Hawks were cycling high-profile politicians, he didn't look the other way. When corruption investigations stalled, he didn't blink. When internal memos warned him to be more cooperative, he wrote one back, asking for proof of wrongdoing. That's who he is, not just a cop, not just a commissioner, but a systems man, a rule of law man, someone who believes that the uniform should mean something again, and he is willing to lose his position, reputation, and even safety to make it so. It's 2011 and South Africa's police service is in chaos. The National Commissioner, Bekitele, is suspended over a dodgy 1.7 billion lease deal. Political pressure is mounting. The public's trust is on life support. And into the eye of the storm steps a man nobody expected, General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. At just 39 years old, he's appointed acting National Police Commissioner, the youngest in history. No party backing, no political strings, just a quiet resume of results. And for a brief moment, it looks like SAPS might finally be run by someone who doesn't owe anyone favors. But that's exactly the problem. Behind the scenes, not everyone is happy because Mkhwanazi doesn't play by the old boys club rules. He starts by reviewing procurement contracts, he questions deployments that don't make operational sense, and he makes one thing clear: this isn't a political office, it's a law enforcement agency. Within months, whispers began that he's too rigid, not aligned with leadership, hard to manage, which is code for he's not doing what he's told. Then, in 2012, it happens without warning. Mkhwanazi is removed from his post, replaced with Mangwashi Piega, someone with no policing background. The message was loud and clear: discipline is optional, obedience is not. Most people in his position would have backed off, maybe even resigned quietly, but not Mkhwanazi. He goes back to KZN, accepts a lower profile role, and gets back to work. Because for him, it was never about the title. Years pass, leadership changes, ministers come and go, but Mkhwanazi keeps building a reputation, not in politics, but in prisons. By 2021, crime in KZN is boiling over. Assassinations, taxi violence, gang-linked corruption. The province needs someone who won't flinch, someone with a spine, and so they call him back, this time as the official provincial police commissioner. And this time, he doesn't ask permission. He arrests who needs to be arrested. He dismantles networks, and if the fingerprints on a crime scene lead to a political office, he doesn't blink. General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi doesn't speak much at press briefings, but when he does, the room goes quiet. It's early 2022, the media is swarming. Political leaders are in damage control, and Mkhwanazi, without raising his voice, drops a bomb. There is political interference in our work, and I will not stand for it. No names, no details, but the shot had been fired. Everyone in the room knew who he meant, and if they didn't, they soon would. It starts with a corruption investigation in the eThekwini municipality. Millions in tenders awarded to shady companies, some without any service delivery to show for it. And when the SAPS moves in with signed warrants and tactical units, phones in high offices start ringing. Politicians demand answers. Senior party officials label the raid politically motivated, but Mkhwanazi doesn't flinch. We follow the evidence, not the headlines, he tells the ENCA. For the first time in years, municipal staff are being arrested, cell phones seized, cars impounded, and for the first time in years, some politicians are starting to sweat. Later that year, he rolls out Operation Chanela across KZN, an aggressive boots-on-the-ground crime crackdown. It's not popular with everyone. Nightclubs are raided, suspicious warehouses get surprise visits, even politically connected business owners start getting knocks at the door. Behind closed doors, the pressure begins to mount. Sources report that Mkhwanazi is not cooperative, that he's acting independently. Translation, he's not taking instructions from anyone. A leaked memo from SAPS insiders even suggested some within the police structure want him sidelined. Quietly, strategically, discreetly. But when asked about it, Mkhwanazi says nothing. He just keeps showing up to the crime scenes, calling out the ANC on camera. Then comes the real firestorm. During a live briefing on the Phoenix riots, he's asked about the coordination between the SAPS and the ANC leadership. His reply: cold, clear, and unexpected. The police serve the public, not the ANC. That one line made headlines for weeks. ANC officials quickly tried to walk it back. Party spokespeople say he was misunderstood, but Mkhwanazi, he doesn't correct the record. He lets the silence speak louder than any press release ever could. These weren't just isolated incidents, they were declarations. Each move, each raid, each code, a message to the powerful. Your title doesn't protect you anymore, and while he hasn't been removed yet, the walls are closing in. budget cuts, deployment pushback, political noise. But here's the difference between Mkhwanazi and most in uniform. He's not trying to survive the system, he's trying to fix it, and that makes him dangerous. If you only listen to politicians, you'd think General Mkhwanazi is difficult to work with, uncooperative, and maybe even too independent. But talk to the people on the street, you will hear something else entirely. That guy is the only one actually doing something. South Africa's media landscape is structured just like its politics. Some outlets toe the official line. When Mkhwanazi speaks out, they run headlines like "Commissioner defies national policy" or "Tensions in the SAPS leadership." Others, especially independent platforms and smaller newsrooms, paint a very different picture. They frame him as a rare force of accountability in a system paralyzed by patronage. When he publicly challenged ANC interference in police work, some news channel tried to bury the story, others added the clip on repeat. In many ways, the media reflects the divide in the country itself. Those clinging to the old way of doing things and those who are tired of waiting for change. It's a different story. The clips of his press briefings go viral, Twitter threads dissect his words, TikTok remix his quotes with beats, Facebook pages call him our last hope. A 2023 Twitter poll by Daily Maverick asked users to name one public official they still trusted. Mkhwanazi's name was top of the list, beating even the president. People don't see him as perfect, but they see him as present, as real, as someone who still believes in the badge he wears. Finally, one comment read, "A cop who doesn't act like a politician." The national government avoids talking about him. No praise, no public condemnations either, just silence. It's the kind of silence that says, we are watching him, or maybe we don't know what to do with him. Because how do you discipline someone who's doing the right thing? Just not the obedient thing. You don't attack him, you isolate him, you freeze his budget, you shuffle his officers. You wait for him to mess up, but so far he hasn't. In a country where public trust in institutions is nearly gone, General Mkhwanazi has become something rare. A cop who talks straight, a leader who doesn't dodge questions, a public servant who actually serves the public. The media can spin it however they want, but in the hearts of everyday South Africans, he's become a symbol of what policing could be. It's not just that General Mkhwanazi arrests people. Lots of cops do that. It's not even that he investigates politicians. That's been done before, carefully, quietly, and often without results. No, what makes Mkhwanazi dangerous is something far more unsettling. He's proving that the system can work without corruption, without favoritism, without political approval. In South Africa, the line between the state and the party has long been blurred. Deployment committees, quiet phone calls, internal alignment. But Mkhwanazi breaks that illusion every time he takes the podium and reminds the public that the police don't work for the ANC, that we work for the constitution. That's not just rebellion, that's mutiny, because in a patronage-based system, loyalty is everything. You rise by protecting the network, not by challenging it. But Mkhwanazi doesn't play that game. He reports to the law, not the party. But if he can do that and still survive, what's stopping others from doing the same? That's the real threat. He's contagious, a blueprint for what independent policing could look like. He disrupts the power chain. Most provincial commissioners are expected to manage optics, to clear operations through political offices, to quietly ignore the wrong targets. But Mkhwanazi doesn't ask for permission. He builds his own intelligence networks. He leads operations himself, and he keeps the media looped in before anyone can spin the story. "We are here to enforce the law, not to please politicians," he once told a local reporter. And that independence doesn't just embarrass the elite, it unravels them. Because once someone proves you don't have to bow, everyone starts asking why so many others still do. He forces accountability. Without saying a word, Mkhwanazi really calls out specific politicians. He doesn't need to. His actions do it for him. When he arrests officials tied to fraudulent tenders or raids a warehouse linked to a well-known donor, he's not just enforcing the law, he's challenging the entire culture of immunity. He's saying, even you aren't above the law, no matter how many speeches you have given. That terrifies people in power because they know they've built careers on silence, spin, and plausible deniability. He's not afraid of political exile. Perhaps most dangerously of all, he doesn't seem to care about the consequences. You can't bribe him, you can't flatter him, you can't threaten him with demotion because he's already been there and came back stronger. He's not playing chess like the others, he's playing Jenga, removing the very blocks that hold the system up. Politicians don't fear Mkhwanazi because he's loud or violent or politically ambitious. They fear him because he's consistent, principled, and unshakable. Because in a country where the system has trained people to expect betrayal, he shows up with integrity, and that is the one thing corrupt power can't predict, control, or destroy. Fast forward to today, 2025. General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is still standing, still active, still stirring the pot. After years of battles, both visible and behind closed doors, he remains one of the few figures in South African law enforcement willing to openly challenge corruption and political interference. He currently serves as a provincial police commissioner in KwaZulu-Natal, a province still battling some of the highest crime rates in the country. But unlike many of his predecessors, Mkhwanazi approaches this role with a singular focus: results. Under his watch, the number of high-profile arrests has surged. Syndicates, bursts, drug ring crackdowns, even arrests involving politically connected figures, all signs of a man unafraid to confront the status quo. His leadership style has earned respect from the frontline officers who feel empowered, but it also has made him a target for political maneuvering, budget cuts, and quiet sidelining. The public's fascination with Mkhwanazi hasn't faded. His statements still make headlines. His actions are tracked closely by independent journalists and activists alike, but there's a growing recognition that even the most committed individual can only do so much within a system resistant to change. Budget constraints continue to limit operations. Political interference hasn't disappeared, it's simply more subtle. Some of the biggest corruption cases remain unsolved or stalled in courts, and while Mkhwanazi has resisted pressure so far, whispers persist about attempts to undermine his influence. The future of his fight, what happens next, isn't clear. Will the system adapt or allow leaders like Mkhwanazi to reform policing from within, or will the weight of politics eventually weigh him down? One thing is certain, his story has inspired a new generation of officers and activists to demand accountability. His fight isn't just his own anymore. In a country grappling with crime, corruption, and political gamemanship, General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi remains a rare symbol of integrity. He's not perfect, he's human, but he embodies the possibility of a police service that serves the people, not politicians. And as South Africa watches, the question remains, how long can one man hold the line? At first glance, this might seem like just another story about a cop fighting corruption, but General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's journey is much more than that. It's a mirror held up to South Africa, reflecting the struggles, the hopes, and the fractures of a nation still wrestling with the legacy of his past. His story shows us how one individual can disrupt the system that often feels impenetrable. One man's refusal to bow to political pressure challenges decades of silence and complicity. It's a reminder that change doesn't always come from sweeping reforms and grand declarations. Sometimes it starts with a single act of integrity. But Mkhwanazi's story also reveals how fragile institutions really are, how easily they can be swayed by politics, by fear, or by convenience, how desperately they need people who will stand firm, even when the cost is high. This isn't just a South African story. Around the world, we see dangers of political interference in institutions meant to serve justice, the erosion of accountability, the weaponization of power, the silencing of whistleblowers. These are global issues, and Mkhwanazi's example offers a blueprint for resisting that erosion, inspiring the next generation. More than anything, his story inspires young officers, activists, and everyday citizens see that integrity isn't just an ideal, it's an action, that courage isn't about loud speeches, but about steady, consistent resistance, that even in the imperfect systems, doing the right thing matters. General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi wasn't just fighting criminals or corrupt politicians, he was fighting the deeper disease, the decay of trust in institutions meant to protect us all. And that fight isn't over, because systems don't change themselves, people do, and sometimes all it takes is one person brave enough to say, "Not on my watch." That's why he's the man South African politicians fear the most.